meeting is being recorded.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Spirit. So apologies for those of you who've was waiting for the recording. I had a bit of a technical issue, and so I'm re-recording it without anyone doing it with me. So bit Billy No Mates today. Anyway, for those of you who've not drawn with me before, I'm going to use two pencils today. I'm going to use my light blue and also a dark blue. This is solely so you can see where I'm going to put my planning marks and where I'm going to put my shading, and where it's heavy and where it's light. And so that it just means that if I tried to sketch this out lightly, you wouldn't be able to see it on camera, whereas you're just going to use it as an indication of where to press heavily and where to press lightly. So I'm going to start off with my pale blue. So that means that you're going to press very lightly. You can probably just see where I've marked out my marks. For those of you who don't know how this is set up, I have to sit at this really strange angle over to the side. So if I don't give myself a little bit of a guide to start off with, these do not look like horses. I'm going to start off by drawing a line down the centre of my page. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's a very, for you, it's a very pale guideline. You might want to use a ruler. That's absolutely fine. I'm going to draw a circle or an oval sitting on this line up here. This is going to be my horse's head. I can, while I'm up here, also pop in a line that's kind of dissecting it in the direction I want my horse's head to go. Remember, these are really pale lines for you. And below that, I'm going to do another oval. This oval is roughly half the size of that head one. So you could stack two on top of each other in the bigger one. Okay, our horse, its nose is going down that way, so it's going to have eyes. So where we're going to put our eyes, we need to, at a 90 degrees from this line, put a guideline across. Horses have ears. We're going to put two leaf shapes in. Ready? They're quite big on horses, not as big as donkeys, but they're still quite big. Nice and big to ignore you with. Voice of experience there. Okay, I am then going to leave just slightly shy of this head circle gap below, and I'm going to do another larger circle in there. So just to give you an idea, this, if I shuffled that down to there, there'd be a slight overlap, and then I'm going to do one big circle that's approximately 1.5 times the head circle. If you've ever done figure drawing, you'll know all about head units and things like that. Okay, so our horse has got a bottom, and our bottom is going to be the same size circle, but we're going to slide it over to the right. Don't go too high. We're going to have them overlapping, and it's going to just kiss this central line. So we've got a big body circle there and a bottom circle there. This doesn't look like a horse, Tony. It will do. Now we've got to sort of join things up and try and make it make a bit more sense. So, a few more circles. We've got these really strong legs, these lovely long, kind of like strong muscles and things like that. So, sitting on this front circle, we're going to pop in some joints. These are roughly the same size, fractionally bigger than the muzzle circle up here. And we're also going to pop in a knee joint. That is probably about the same size as our muzzle circle here. And then we're going to kind of join those up. This is, don't forget, our planning. So we can go wrong with this, we can change it. This is all just light sketching. Like sketching, like there's heavy sketching, you know, heavy, serious sketching. Okay, we've got this joint here, this shoulder, that's going to come down. This leg is, this right hand leg's coming forward towards us. This back leg is, this other leg is kind of moving away from us. So it's going to tuck in behind there. Got this strong chest muscle here. So we're going to just sketch that in so that we know it's there for later. This kind of chest muscle goes across here and then comes up outside your circle. We've then got on this right hand one, we have a kind of a bit of muscle around the joint. Then we're going to go up to the belly. Those, believe me, those can be quite round. And then we've got this back leg. We can't see the other one. Sometimes you can leave stuff out and it's actually clearer because you're not muddling up the information. So our back joint is going to be about the same width as this knee joint, but a little bit longer. And it's kind of sitting, if I was to draw a line across, it's just sitting on top of that line that goes across from the front knee. Okay, so we got our knee joint, that's going to come up, join up here on our hip. These are really powerful muscles in that back leg. So we have got a circle, but we're just going to square off the top a little bit. And then we're going to come up to the face. So we've got our main circle. We've got the main structure there. We just need to put the details on. So first thing we do, we come up to where our cross is, and that's going to give us the placement of the eye socket. So they have this kind of, just like where we have our eyebrow, I'm touching mine there, which you can't see, of course. So we have this kind of eye socket here that then comes down to the nose. We're going to go just looping over slightly our circle before we actually get to the muzzle, which is kind of almost like a diamond shape to it. Round the circle again and then up to the cheek. We know that the placement of the eye, we're going to have one here. I can put it just below that eye socket. So that means our other one will sit on the eye socket here on the eye line, just so you can see. He's kind of looking that way. And then we've got our neck. So not a lot of information about our neck here. It's all in shadow, but we know that it's going to come up behind that muzzle and join to this line here. And on the right hand side, we're going to loop up before we come down. We've got this line here that we've kind of put in is almost like a spine. So parts of it, it would go there if it was actually the spine, but think of it almost like a spine. It loops over and then our neck muscles come down. We're not even going to think about things like the mane at this point. We're going to get our body and some of our muscle work in and then put the mane in at the end. So this is it for the sketching. This is hopefully your horse is looking nice and horsey right now. If it isn't, this is the point where you can tweak it and change any bits that you want to. I'm going to switch over to my dark pencil. So this is now you starting to kind of darken in a little bit, put in a little bits of shade. I'm going to use it sometimes quite heavily, really kind of around the eyes and on the mane and the muzzle, really getting some sort of darkness in there. And I'm also going to use it around the muscles, blocking in shadow. So that's kind of like a mid kind of shading. So first thing I've got that's really obvious is this triangle across the face. So I'm going to start off with that. If you want your horse to have a star, sketch it in before you start. That will sit sort of roughly on that cross line, whatever shape you want it to be. And then we're going to go from this muzzle across the eye socket and then curve up to the ear. We can then shade in all of that half of the head. Oh, I missed a bit out. So we want that bit there to be white. Doesn't matter, we can change this up a bit. So I can go a little bit darker here. This is where I say, hands up the person who didn't get in till midnight for a paint session last night, and then, because I did one in Northampton, and then was up again at 5 to go and do a session this morning that I had to prep for. So this is the shadow here. You might go lighter, you might go sort of more dark and solid like I've done. And then we're going to take this down. So we've got this triangle that was the muzzle. We're going to do a medium kind of shade here. I'm going to darken in the line so you can see it. So we've got this kind of a bit of a loop where the nostril's going to be. We've got a round section around the base of the muzzle. We're going to come in and up around where our guide circle was. A little bit of a cheek, and then a bit more. I'm going to lightly shade in that triangle down here. That just gives me a base so that then I can put in my nostrils, which are two kind of crescent moon shape. And then I kind of fudging that a bit. I don't want to put in too much information. So I'm then going to darken in this muzzle here. And there, we've kind of fudged it over it, made it a little bit easier for ourselves. We've got these two lines coming in here that are shadows. Just below the eye. The upper one, we're going to kind of shape it a bit more. So it's wider down at the bottom and gets lighter up near the eyes, or thinner, should I say. Really haven't had enough sleep. And I'm going to come in now, darken up the eyes. And I'm also, eyelashes, horses have the most ridiculously long eyelashes, and just a few lines around the eye socket for the eyelids. Okay. While I'm doing this area, I'm going to go straight up to the ears. So a lot of the ponies have dark tips. So I'm going to darken that off and then really darken the middle, and then a medium shade through that. Like that. It's going to look a bit weird without a mane to start off with, but that's okay. So this ear, this is facing towards us. So with that ear, they're kind of listening, they're kind of half concentrating, and they can hear something going on over here, or they're choosing to ignore you. That's also a good one. So I've drawn in a leaf shape. I'm going to do my same little kind of tip, dark for it, and I'm going to come down. I'm missing out, it's a similar shape, but I'm missing out that central dark area, and I'm just going to put a little bit of shading. The light's coming from this direction, so we'd have shading on that ear, across the top of the head, and we've got that spine, so we're going to join that neck and just a medium shade over this neck, and we're going to take that down to about level with the cheek. looking quite horsey, even if I say so myself. Okay, looking at the body, we create a bit of depth here by having very kind of light detail over the bump of the bum and this back leg, and stronger shading and detail at the front. That just gives a bit of perspective to our picture. So what I'm going to do is carry on down, putting in the big blocks of shading before I put in like more detailed areas. I think a lot of people are kind of quite scared to go too contrasty with pencil sketches, but it really does make a difference. Don't be scared of putting in kind of like dark areas and sort of areas that are solid with shading. So we've got this kind of area. Again, let's see if I can remember to leave it in this time. I've got a little semicircle there, but the rest of this down to this leg, I can shade all of that in. Right up and stop under the jaw. So that's my medium shading kind of roughly put in. I can put a bit more of a contrast in now. So right up under this nose is really dark. There's no sunlight hitting that area. So I can really start to darken this down. And I'm going to come across. We've got these strong neck muscles. So coming in like that. This side, the outer side, is really sort of dark. There's no sunlight hitting that area, so this can be really dark as well. Got a little patch of light there, so we can move around that. And then underneath that, I'm going to start to curve in with a darker area. On these chest muscles here, we've got kind of like a teardrop shape. One's slightly going that direction, one's going up, one going to one ear, one going to the other. Leave those white, and we're going to basically do like a bit of a V shape around those with our medium shading. Just like that. And then underneath, we can start to darken. I'm going to pop in this front leg. So we've got this muscle here. Again, it's not a flat curved line, we've got the muscle, so this joint here with a little bump and then quite a shallow curve going down. We're going to follow the curve, so it's going to come in at the top to meet our chest, but it's going to then come down towards the knee. Ideally, leave a little bit of a gap between the knee joint of this leg and that leg, because it just makes it a little bit clearer that that one's tucked behind. It's as important about what you leave out as what you put in pictures. Sketching that in. I don't want to go maybe like too dark all over with that, because it will come forward if there's a lot of contrast. I'm really just putting in a little bit of shadow on the inside of that leg, and then the rest of it, there isn't so much contrast. So I've got this kind of little shadow highlight down here and a bit of a triangle of highlight up there, but the rest of it is a pretty solid shade. just the shading on the inside and the outside of the leg. This front one, we want to have more contrast because the changes in contrast will throw the leg forward towards us. Just give my pencil a quick sharpen. So we've got this knee, got this shadow on this knee. I didn't go quite dark with that. And then it kind of, we're going to sculpt this leg. So we've got this knee here. We're going to kind of not curve it. It's the leg itself is curved, but we're going to have kind of like a little slight bump for this muscle and then another one for this joint. This joint is kind of working around that small circle we did. And then we've got this, again, powerful. If you think of like the calf muscle on a leg of a sportsman where you can kind of really see that muscle protruding, we're kind of going for something like that. And then down to our knee joint. Going to pop in, so we're back to the medium shading. We've got lots of white highlight. I'm going to run this medium shading up the inside of that leg and across the top. Of the joint. There we go, yeah. Okay. So as we work backwards or towards the right of our horse, we're going to get gradually paler with our lines. So this front joint is still at the front. It's still going to have a bit of contrast. We're going to run in and then just ever so slightly scoop out. We've got a nice round tummy. Not too round though. And then we've got this leg. By the time we get to this leg, we don't really want, maybe just the tiniest bit under there, but we don't really want any heavy shading. So the very darkest bit would be under there. That might have some medium shading and maybe just the edge would have a dark line to it. But we want to keep this nice and light. So not a lot of contrast. So I put in my shading on the inside of it and then fill up like that. There we go. By the time we get up to the rump, there's hardly any details in there at all. So you can just a few rough sketch lines, a little bit of a squiggle on its back, and that's all it needs. It really doesn't need a lot. Just now got these fabulous muscles on our neck to go on our horse's body. And then we have a look at it and see if there's any kind of bits of shading we need to darken down and have a tweak of. So our neck comes around and then it's going to basically come around and join up to this joint here. So if you want to, you can give yourself a little guideline, but if you can work just sort of following it around with your hand before you touch it, you can do that. That's great. Going to come down, or rather come, I can't even speak up and down at the moment. Come round like that, give ourselves a nice neck. And then, as you can see, we've got on this side our muscles coming round. We're going to mirror that with some muscles coming down the neck. Okay, so again, this is a little bit set back. We want this muzzle to have the contrast and come towards us, and this next is the next kind of step back. So we want some dark shading, but not too much contrast. Plus we need to give ourselves somewhere to go with our mane. And then I'm going to just go with a light shade on the edges, bulk out some of these, bring a little bit of muscle tone up to meet it. Pop a little bit of shading on that belly. And I'm pretty happy with that. This back leg here I think's gone a bit weird. So I'm going to shade that in a little bit more. I think I got it much better on that one than I have on this one. But that's how it goes. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. A little bit of darker shading down here. But it's hard to sort of judge it until you put the really extreme, much darker things in. So, and that's our mane and our tail, or the other way around. Oh, really shouldn't do this on 4 hours sleep. On 4 hours sleep. So if it helps you, pop in a really pale guideline from where the tail would sit on the rump around to give you an idea, or you can just you know, just follow it, trace it with your hand, and then pop the line in when you actually get to the point that you want. I like to do this quite sketchy, and I also twist my hand round, or the paper round, and you get a kind of flowing sort of looseness to it by doing it that way. It's just really simple squiggle. Don't go too sort of thick and blocky with it. And I'm going to really darken that in where it meets the body. With the mane, we're going to start with the forelock. You can make this forelock as long and as flowing as you want. We've kind of suggested with the tail, it could be flicking that way, or it could be the wind blowing it. So we're going to stick with our mane pretty much flowing in the same direction as our tail. And we'll start with the forelock, work around what you've done. So if you've got a bit, say you've done your star and you're not happy with it, you can put your forelock across it. If you're really happy with your eyes, work around that. If you've gone, you've gone a bit wrong and you're not happy with it, then you can cover it with your forelock. We're going to start off, I think I'll give my pencil another sharpen. I'm going to start off basically in between these two ears, and I'm going to sketch in a few lines just so I know where I want this forelock or mane to be going. When you do hair, don't think of it as a solid kind of thing, and don't think of it as individual strands. Think of it as clumps, because that hair tends to clump together and move in those clumps. So, and those clumps become thicker and thinner. So when they clump together at the ends, they might be kind of thinner. You might have the odd strand that is loose, but it will be more solid. Anyone who did the mermaid with me will sort of hopefully remember this. You'll have areas where it spreads out and becomes a bit lighter, and areas where it's compacted and becomes darker. So that's something to think about. So get your main sort of clumps in. Like that. And then once you're kind of happy with those, you can start to put in some more details. Put in a few loose strands, but not too many. Mine's gone a bit straight out here, so I think what I'll do is with my next ones, I'm going to kind of come across behind the ear, but also raise it up. So remembering we've got that kind of spine going down the back, so the in between the ears, it's gonna your mane will be along the middle, so there might be a bit of a gap between the ears. Like that. I'm gonna have one that's sort of standing up a little bit, coming over. And then on this side, just to kind of balance it off and give us a nice finish, we're going to loop and bring some of our mane down. You can kind of pop in some bumps and stray hairs. People think horses are majestic beasts, and they're not. A lot of them are tangled, messy swamp monsters 90% of the time. And when they're looking beautiful and majestic, it's somebody doing a lot of hard work to get them looking like that. So these manes they do tend to be quite bumpy. That's fine. If you want to, you can kind of continue your flowing mane over this side, but we've got so much shadow down that side of the horse that it will kind of confuse your information a bit. So that's it. That was a very quick class, I think, with no one to talk to. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope that you've kind of learned a little bit about the idea of perspective and dark areas and light areas, and also you can see I've drawn two horses. Both look. This one looks like a male, and I think that one looks like a female pony, I would say. So thank you for joining me, and I'm going to be adding some more classes soon, so hopefully I'll see you at another one. Bye.